Alright, let's talk about the Integra Type R, the DC2, from 1997 to 2001 in the United States. This is a video I wanted to make to talk about some misinformation about the Type R, in that what should I say? The demand for this car varied over the years, especially here in the United States. So I wanted to talk about, because I think a lot of people focus in on the 2000 and 2001 models, and they actually don't realize that the 97 and 98 models were very different. They were actually in a different time. So funny story about that is that even just within those 4 or 5 years, a lot changed. So one thing is that a lot of people don't realize is that the 97 and 98 Type Rs did not sell well in the United States. They were actually having a hard time selling them. The time that they were being sold, it was basically pre-internet. And when I say pre-internet, yes, the internet was around, but it was in its very infancy stages. And I think the generation that were buying the cars, particularly, they weren't ready for a car like the Type R. The people who could, I guess, kind of afford it, particularly the people who are looking at Integras, it was just a car that I think most people didn't understand, and honestly, they didn't care about it. It was a car that I think a lot of people looked at and said, well, why would I buy this if I can buy a GSR? Yeah, it has a little bit less horsepower, but I can get many different colors. It's not gaudy. It doesn't look somewhat, I guess like boy racers, they like to say. It just looks, I like to call it like, has I guess at that time, big wings were not, were not looked upon highly. A lot of people don't realize the Toyota Supra, when it came out in 1993, it actually, they kind of mocked the twin turbo spoiler. So I'm 45 years old, so I grew up with these cars. I was a teenager when a lot of these cars were brand new, and I was a car enthusiast back then. So I actually experienced it at a very, very, I guess, unique time. So I came from somewhat of a younger generation at that time that was interested in the cars, but I couldn't afford them because I was obviously still young. But yeah, so with the the kind of the mocking of the Supra, then the Type R came out. You could only get it with in championship white with the championship wheels. It didn't come with a spoiler. It didn't. The 1997 particularly, basically it was you had to get air conditioning installed at the dealership. The cars did not come with air conditioning from the factory. So what you did is if you wanted air conditioning, you would actually have to order it with air conditioning. And when they shipped the cars over, they installed the air conditioning at the dealership. That they actually did that same thing with other cars that more often came with air conditioning. But just remember, the 1990s was a time still that air conditioning was still considered, particularly for like lower models, not like BMWs and things. But back then, even cars, to get air conditioning, to get like a power antenna, power steering wasn't a standard feature. ABS was not either. So it was just a car that I think when it came out, just most people didn't really see it as an option, because they looked at it like the GSR was somewhat classier. And you couldn't get the Type R with leather seats. So there's a lot of things that were going for it. When for the population at the time, they were definitely more looking for luxury, especially coming from a manufacturer like Acura. If they're going from a Honda, considering a Honda, to an Acura, they were looking for more of a luxury car versus a car that was more hardcore, sports car. So a lot of people don't realize, I actually think, I haven't really got solid confirmation of why the United States did not get a 1999 Type R when a lot of other countries, particularly even Canada, got a 1999 Type R. But I'm very confident that the sales were so low in the United States that they decided to not sell it, because there just wasn't that much demand. So here's a kind of a funny story. So I actually tried to buy a brand new 1998 Type R in Cincinnati, Ohio, brand new. And the funny thing about it was the salesman had such a hard time selling it. So it was around, so I actually had a 1996 Honda Accord sedan automatic that I bought brand new. Actually, my parents bought it for me. But I got into an accident where some lady T-boned me. And so my car only had like 29,000 miles, if I remember correctly. So long story short, I was in need technically of a car. So I went to go visit the Acura dealership to look at the Type R. And I talked to the salesman, and the funny thing is the salesman didn't know anything about the Type R. He was making, I knew a lot about it, and he was making, statements about the car that just weren't true. He was like saying that the engine had two VTEC systems on it. He was just talking a lot of stuff that just wasn't true. So long story short, so this happened. I got into an accident. I was taking summer classes in Cincinnati, and I actually came home. I was taking one summer class, and I came home for like 2 months, and my roommate told me that the salesman would not stop calling the house. He was calling for literally 2 or 3 months, leaving message after message. So apparently that, I knew that they were having a hard time selling them, but I didn't know that they were having that tough of a time selling them. But that was kind of commonplace. As I said, most people just didn't know what it was, and most people, this is how bad that it was, that most people didn't know what it was. If you tried to insure a Type R, they didn't even have that listed as a car to insure as a model. They would actually insure it as the RS model, the base model. So, it was just one of those things that just most people didn't know about, didn't get much press. I don't think there was much interest in it either, because it was just a car that, people just overlooked. So that's just one thing I wanted to bring up about the Type R, where I think a lot of people think that, the car was always a desired car. And it just wasn't. It was, as I said, I think it was the time in the human history, as well as the consumers that were looking for cars like that just weren't interested in those kinds of cars. So it's, was it a failure in the United States? I don't know. I think that maybe the United States not getting the 1998 model would, I think, kind of confirm that it's it was a failure to a certain degree. So here's where things changed in 2000. And particularly 2001, obviously the internet started getting bigger. I still remember, I think I joined my first car forum in 1998, if I remember correctly. I was either a junior, I believe I was a junior in college. And I still remember the first car forum that I joined was Honda-Acura.net and SuperHonda.com. So those were the first two. And then I think shortly after I joined Honda Tech. Maybe Honda Tech was early 2000s, like maybe 2000. But long story short was this: so when the Type R came out, the 97 and 98, it was before internet, as far as car forums and posting videos online and things like that. So getting information about the car was just not available like it was in the later years of the 90s and early 2000s. So with that said, there was basically three things that I would say changed the course of really, I would say, like automotive history, particularly for the 80s and 90s cars, and then going forward for the newer cars. So the car forums were definitely one thing that really helped. The next thing that I would say is, and I never thought about it until one of my friends told me about it, because I didn't play video games. So Gran Turismo was a big reason why a lot of 80s and 90s cars grew in popularity. And so those are the two things. And then the third reason is, I mean, I guess I could say that it was mainly the internet, but I would say car forums. I thought there was another, I was thinking there was another reason. Man, I can't think of, then I would say, being able to, take videos, the camera, having a camera started becoming a little bit more readily available. Of course, it was still somewhat rare to get one. And, man, I want to say there was one other thing that the car forums, the internet, the video games. I guess those are the three things that really oh, and the Fast and the Furious. When the Fast and the Furious came out, I think that really changed things a lot. Because, when it came to cars, if people were into cars, it was actually like underground. I will say, I think Fast and the Furious definitely brought attention to something that was going on. It was like some of that subculture stuff, that stuff that happened. It was, you had to know people to know that there was like car meets and car racing, street racing and things like that. But so those were the 3-4 things that I would say really changed things for the 2000 and 2001 Type R. And I will say, unfortunately, I would say, I think because of those things, they became popular. But unfortunately, I can honestly say as well that I think, because of that, a lot of younger people started buying them, and because of that, it started getting a bad reputation. And I don't think people appreciated it as much, the car as much. So just wanted to I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of brief history, particularly someone who experienced it, back in the day, and actually knows that, there was definitely a difference. And, I think there's, unfortunately, I think there's misinformation that people thought that, that this car was, always popular. I will say, so I actually got into an accident in my 96 Accord in January of 2001, and I actually tried to buy a Type R. I will say, I think I didn't give it enough effort, and unfortunately, I didn't really look farther, different states and things like that. So I actually ended up buying a 2001 BMW 325 instead, and I will say I do regret that to a certain degree. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of give you a little brief history of it, and hopefully this kind of clears up a little bit of misinformation about the car. But yes, the 97s and 98 models, they did not sell well. Most people didn't really care for the car, and it's kind of a shame. But yes, hopefully this gave you guys a little bit of insight. If any of you guys have your own personal experiences back then, I'm definitely kind of curious to hear what you guys have to say. All right, hope this helps. Bye.